guys, welcome back to Flora Fun and Food. My name is Lauren and this is my brother Austin, and today he's going to show us how he built this raised garden bed for him and his girlfriend. This one is completed, so I'll let him tell you a little bit about it and then we'll show you how he did it with a smaller version over here.
Alright, so this is what we're going to be building today. This is a raised garden bed of my own design. I just made it out of scrap lumber and some recycled corrugated sheet metal. I used 4x4s as the corners, cut them down to accept 2x6s or 2x4s, whatever I had on hand, and then I braced them so that the corrugated sheet metal wouldn't bow out once it's filled with sticks and dirt and everything else. This is the one that I finished yesterday. It's the larger size of the two. Today we're going to be building the smaller one. One improvement I'd like to make is add a cap to cover the sharp edge so that whenever you're reaching in, you don't cut yourself. So come along as we build the smaller one and I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is cut the 4x4s that make up the corners. For that, I'm obviously going to need a 4x4, a saw, a square, a tape measure, and a pencil. So let's get to it. Since my corrugated sheet metal is 26 inches tall, that's how long I'm going to be cutting the 4x4s. Now I have all the corner boards cut to length, and it's time to chop out a section of the top so that the 2x4s can rest in. We're going to need the same tools as last time, plus a sawzall in order to cut all the way through, since this circular saw doesn't quite reach the halfway point of these 4x4s. Okay. We're going to start the same way as cutting these to length and doing all of our layout. So, I need, for a 2x4 to sit into a groove, I need it to be 3.5 inches deep. And then we will cut in 1.5 inches this way. So here, while I'm doing the layout, I'm marking X's. These indicate what I want to cut out. That way I don't accidentally cut off what I want to keep. I know that anything with an X is what's going away. So if you were a little confused about the markings that I just did, let me explain it a little bit further. I want to have this section cut out down into the 4x4. So this measurement is 3.5. That allows for the 2x4. You can see that marked out here with an X. Then if we spin to the next side, this whole section is cut out. That is also 3.5. We spin to the next one. This whole section also is cut out. And then the final side, only this section is cut out right here. So if you imagine this 2x4 that sits here, we're just cutting out that section from here. I wanted a shelf that a 2x4 could sit on. And then the other one notches into place just like that. This allows me to have this side flush with where the sheet metal is going to go onto the outside of the raised bed. Next, I need to cut the 2x4s to length that make up the outside perimeter of the top of the beds. So this bed is going to be 5 foot by 2 foot. So I'm going to take these 8 foot 2x4s and cut them down to 5 foot. So now we have our long sides cut, which are cut to 5 feet. The short sides are going to be 2 feet. But we need to account for the thickness of each board on each side. So it's going to be 2 feet minus 3 inches total because each board is 1.5 inches 1.5 thick. Okay, so now we're going to start adding the 2x4s onto the 4x4 posts. Now maybe it'll make a little more sense why we cut out that section. Now we have the 5-foot side on, we're going to add the 2-foot side. To hold these together, I'm using 2.5-inch deck screws. That's so that they don't poke all the way through once they're fully driven in. Deck screws are usually a little more structurally sound than something like a sheetrock screw, plus a lot of them now have this coating that keeps them from corroding. So here, I'm squaring up this post, so that way whenever the full frame is assembled, it's not like cattywampus, instead it's actually square. So if you square every time you add a board, it should come out relatively square. So as you can see, this one is definitely not square, but because of how I'm building this, I'm going to put one screw in, square it up, and then add the second screw to keep it square. The sheet metal siding to this. Since this is a 10-foot piece of corrugated sheet metal, we're just going to cut it in half. That'll give us 2 5-foot pieces for both sides. Then I have this piece left over, which is 4 feet. Cut that in half, that'll be our 2-foot ends. So all I'm going to do is measure out 5 feet, draw a line, and then cut it with some shears. So now we're just going to add the sheet metal to the frame with some self-tapping sheet metal screws. So as I said, we're attaching the sheet metal using self-tapping screws. These are called self-tapping because they have a drill bit point on the end and they actually cut through the metal as you're screwing it in. Let me demonstrate. So you can see right here, there's no hole. I'm just going to start, and there, it has drilled its own hole in the sheet metal. So if we just keep on going, it sinks it right in. Alright, so we're adding the final sides of corrugated sheet metal onto the frame. So here I'm just marking where I want my center support to go. I'm going to add a 2x4 to make sure that the sheet metal doesn't bow out in the center. Alright, so now that we have our bed finished, we're gonna go put it into place. Let's go on an adventure.
Scooby-Doo-Bop-Boop-Bop-Bop-Bye-Bye! Oh my gosh. All right, it is done and in place. Austin just put a little rock under one side just to kind of level it out. They are going to garden with a method called hugelkultur, which is what I did in my container garden, where you fill the bottom with large logs and sticks, leaves, any organic material to kind of build up a base layer that will decompose over time and then in turn add nutrients back to your soil. Then they'll top it with soil and compost and things like that and mulch with straw on top, just like we did in our container garden. So Sydney said she's gonna plant flowers in this one, veggies in the big one, and then they have a water trough over here that is going to have, we don't know yet, in it. And they're also going to have a little herb garden on their deck. So we'll give you an update when spring hits and we get to start planting things. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and head over to my channel for more content like this. And I hope to see you guys again very soon. Thanks guys. Bye.